Okay, it's 1 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and begin with Dr. Paula Johnson.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us here at our IDRA webinar series, continuing today with two very special guests to discuss facilitating online math sessions with students. We have done several webinars to date, and all in response to the COVID-19 pandemic that we are all living through. And we wanted to get the word from some teachers that would be in their classrooms right now, but unfortunately are not. We've talked about different resources and technology tools that can be used to help our teacher friends along, but we wanted to get the perspective of some teachers that are actually missing their students right now from the classroom. So I am going to share my screen real quick so I can do a few introductions. And as always, I am proud to be a part of a phenomenal STEM team of some wonderful women. Again, I am Paula Johnson, IDRA EAC-South Director. Then we also have in the background, who the voice you've been hearing is Ms. Michelle Martínez Vega. She's our Chief Technology Strategist. And also in our meeting today is Dr. Stephanie Garcia, who is our STEM Equity and Gender Education Associate. And they have both been doing some wonderful work along with some of our other colleagues in the field, trying to give you as much information as we can during this time. I myself am an educator, 26 years in education, classroom teacher, department chair. I was a curriculum specialist, and I am the resident math expert, they call me, at IDRA. So I am one of the three STEM-anistas at IDRA. I currently am the director of the IDRA EAC-South, which is one of 4 federally funded technical assistance centers in the United States, funded by the Department of Education. We work with school districts to address issues of inequity centered on race, gender, national origin, and religion. Our region is comprised of 12 states, the 10 U.S. South states, along with the Commonwealth of Virginia and the District of Columbia. So start at Texas, go over to Florida and turn north, go all the way up to DC, and that's the area that we cover. We work with school districts and state agencies that are looking to provide more equitable educational opportunities for all students, all learners. We do a lot of teacher training. We do reviews of discipline plans. There are a variety of ways that we provide technical assistance. And that's one of the ways that these webinars are one of the ways that we are providing what we call universal assistance during this time especially. I'd like Michelle and then Stephanie to come on the line and introduce themselves, please.
Hello, everyone. As Paula said, my name is Michelle Martínez Vega, and I am the Chief Technology Strategist for IDRA. We're here to support you during this time. As Paula said, we're offering this web series to everyone so that we can hopefully provide you with tips and tricks and things that you can use that are going to be helpful during this really unprecedented time, but we're here for you, and so welcome everyone, and we're happy to see you guys. Stephanie?
Hi everybody. Thank you so much for joining the call. I am, as they said, part of the STEM team here at IDRA. We help provide technical assistance in many different areas, whatever the needs are in the district. Specifically, my area is in gender equity and STEM education, and so I also help direct and co-lead with my colleagues here the Texas Chief Science Officer Program. We have over 100 middle school and high school students across San Antonio and Houston. in over 12 districts, and they are youth STEM leaders. And so they create action plans in their schools and communities. And so, yeah, we're all navigating this new normal right now of virtually meeting and all those things. And so I'm just personally so excited to hear from the teacher's perspective of what's happening and what are some tools and tips for all of us, especially those of us doing math instruction virtually. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Michelle. And I want to move into introducing our guests. And I'm going to let them tell you a little bit more about themselves, but I am going to introduce two wonderful women that I am very pleased were able to join us today. And the first is Mrs. Heather Aguilar. She is an elementary school teacher from Woodlake Elementary in Judson ISD here in San Antonio. And the second teacher is Miss Susan Hernandez, who I have known for I don't even know how many years now. And she is a math phenom in the pre-cal world and in UIL, and just does a lot of wonderful things with her students prior to the situation. And I think she's just being a trooper now as well. And I am going, we don't have a slide deck. I just want that they have some tools they're going to show you. So they're going to be sharing their screens, but I'm going to let them take it away.
So good afternoon. Like Paula said, I'm Susan Hernandez. I teach at John Jay High School. This is my 21st year teaching. And this was kind of, I guess a lot of teachers, maybe the way I see it, the old ones, maybe a time for panic, but I've been talking to my colleagues, friends, and I said, this is not a time to panic. I always found myself at school in workshops or in, just presentations, and they're saying, okay, try this, try this, try this. And my question was like, when do I have the time? When do I have the time to use a new technology in my classroom where, I started the year with 4 preps. When was I going to have the time? So I saw this as an opportunity, like, you have the time now, Susan. And I mess with it, and, I haven't been perfect, but with I'm kind of OCD, so I make it perfect, but, my kids have absolutely enjoyed it. My goal was not to, I can't mimic the school day. It's nearly impossible. I can't. But my goal was to make them comfortable with the situation that we're in. And so I've done the videos. I've just interact with them, just see how they're doing, let them know like, hey, we're going to get you through this. I'm a little bit stressed because I have an AP class, and they take their exam in a little bit over a month, and they're going to take it from home. And we've been preparing for all these test strategies, and those strategies are out the door now. And so I have to reassure my kids, hey, we're going to get through this. And it's a blessing, because when I see them, they're asking me, we want more, but I've been mandated by my district. I can only do so much, so I can't take their time. But, I'm doing my best, and we're getting through this together.
So Susan, I wanted you to share some of the tools that you use and just wow us with all of the goodies.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and let's see. So when I first started with doing the technology, I was kind of overwhelmed, and like I said, I wanted to make my kids feel comfortable. So I initially started with me being in front of the screen, and I had a whiteboard with me and talking to my kids and giving them the lesson. I got feedback from them, and they're like, oh, that was perfect, miss. We were able to pause it. We were able to ask questions. One thing that I'm not doing is I'm not teaching live. What I'm doing is I'm basically teaching as like an online course, maybe like a flipped classroom almost. I'm asking my students to watch the video at their own pace, their own time, but then we use our Zoom sessions to answer questions they may have. And I tried that, and they said it works out great because they're able to pause it. They're able to go back, make notes, what questions they do want to ask me. So this was one of the first videos that I had did. And I said, okay, you know, I had never done a video using Zoom. And so it was a personal recording, and I have a whiteboard. Me being a math teacher, I have one here at home. I brought it from school. So that was one of the things that I had did. Well, then I said, okay, that might be an option for me. So then I said, okay, let me upgrade. So then, I don't know if many of you have heard about Explain Everything. So I've been blessed by my district to have this software, and I had used it before. I had used it just, you know, maybe work out some problems, to practice problems, put it on Classroom. But what I'm doing now is I'm making videos, and this is the one I just did this morning. So I put a PDF of the notes, and of course I put a clean PDF for my students in Google Classroom, and they're able to watch the video, and the video is pretty long. You can see it's 17 minutes. But that way, you know, I have students that learn best early in the morning. I have students that learn, Miss, I work great at 2 a.m., but they're able to watch it at their own pace. And the stylus was probably the hardest part for me. I've gone through like 4 styluses, and I nailed the one that I found at Dollar Tree for $1 that works perfectly. So my kids have really enjoyed it. And so, you know, this is me this morning doing notes for them. And what I'll do is, I'm going to fast forward, is I upload, once I'm done with my notes, I upload them in Google Classroom. I save it, it's there, they can watch it at their own time. Another thing that's good for me is that because it's saved, when I do have my Zoom sessions with my students, I can easily bring that back in and say, hey, remember I said this? They're like, oh yeah, we saw that. Or I can easily bring up like, Miss, go to example 2. You know, what did you mean by this point? So that's one thing I did. Now, probably the fun part was, if you see my name, I titled this Crazy Kids. So this is a video of my first Zoom session, one of my few Zoom sessions with my kids. And so this is my calculus class, and they're all coming in and they're all excited, you know, just to see each other, to interact. But the nice feature is that, you know, they're getting comfortable. Most of them do go online, but this is what I wanted to share, to show you. So one of the things that that Zoom offers is you have your share screen. And so what I was able to do is, I have an iPad. I was able to connect my iPad to my laptop and share a screen with the kids. Now, Zoom also has a feature of a whiteboard, but I wanted to bring up the video from Explain Everything into the lesson. So let me see, I'm gonna fast forward. I want you to see what it looks like when you're gonna connect your iPad in Zoom. So here's my iPad. The kids are saying, I'm going to explain everything, and I'm bringing up my recording. So I can go back, and now here, what happened was, what I did here was I actually recorded the questions they had. So the questions they were asking me, I had it, and I was working out the problems. And so I recorded that so I can able to put it back in Classroom for them. Now, it got kind of, the fun part was they're able to write on my screen. So be careful with that. And they got a little bit out of control with that. And I was like, hey, give back my screen. And so, you know, they're teenagers, they're kids too, but we had fun with that. But it goes back, and I say, hey, give me back my screen. And eventually they do give me back my screen. And let's see, I think I finally get it back after a while. So that's another feature where you can share the screen with your students. Now, and so here's an example where I brought up the notes and I was able to address any questions they had. Now, being a math teacher and being one where I was in the classroom, I was the one that did the walk-arounds, I did the scavenger hunts, the speed dating, anything to get the kids moving. This was a big transition for me. And group work is very, very important to me in mathematics. Especially because I want the kids to communicate. So one of the features that Zoom has is what they call breakout rooms. So here I am, this is a session. I'm waiting for my kids to come in, and they didn't know what was, I just told them, hey, be surprised, you know, I'm gonna upload a document. So this was our first, so they're slowly coming in, And they all come in, and even my principal came in. She wanted to see the kids too. But one of the features on Zoom is doing breakout rooms. And this is something that you have to enable in your settings. So, you know, it's kind of nice. I see my kids, it's kind of nice to see them. But so here's what happened. Let me see if I can rewind a bit. So it gives me the option where I'm going to do them in breakout rooms, and it does it manually. You can do automatically, or you can assign. Like if you want to assign maybe a strong student with some kids that are struggling, you can do that. And you decide. So you see how they're quickly disappearing off the screen. So they're in their groups. So now what happened was I'm by myself, and then I have the option of joining in the breakout rooms. So here's your one-on-one time with your students, and they can ask you those questions. They're like, hey, and the thing is, they don't even know you're in there sometimes. You sneak in on them, and they're like, I'm making sure they're on task, just like I'm in the classroom, you know. But this is kind of different. These are seniors, you know, they're kind of the top of their class, but they're still kids. So I was able to join different breakout rooms, answer their questions. Now, one thing that I do allow my kids to do is I want them to share their document. So I give them, I say, hey, I ask someone, bring up the document. That way they can talk about it, and someone's writing. I mean, they're more advanced, to be honest. Some of the kids know technology more than we do. But they're writing and they're discussing and, you know, just having a good time with each other. But the most important is that they're learning. You know, they have some type of normalcy for the day that we've been isolated, quarantined, and this is normalcy for them, you know. But the breakout rooms is something that, and then you can time them. So here I am in the main room, and then they're all going to come back up, and then they all come back to the main room. So you can set a time, and I gave them I believe that one I gave them 15 minutes, and they all come back, and we discussed about it, and we checked the answers. And so that was the breakout room. I did get feedback, and then here we were, they had some questions about one of the problems. And so we were talking about the problem at that time. Now, if you look at the time, you know, the video, it's going to be long. It's going to be a pretty long video, almost a class time. But, you know, I don't hold the kids. I don't make them and say, hey, you need to go. But most of the time they do want to stay. You know, this is normalcy for them. And the fact that they're taking an AP calculus class tells you that they enjoy mathematics a lot. But yeah, that's everything that I have to share. I don't know if anyone has questions or comments.
We will come back to questions and answers afterwards, after we hear from Ms. Aguilar. That is, I'm simply amazed that you were able to connect all of those pieces together, and we'll come back and talk about that. So I know that you're using Zoom, your iPad, and Explain Everything. I wanted, and Google Classrooms, I wanted Mrs. Aguilar to talk about how she supports her students through a variety of methods and kind of like what it looks like, to contrast how it is for high school students who are much older than the fifth graders that she has. I think 24 fifth graders that she has right now in school. So I'm going to let her unmute herself and take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Mcpherson Aguilar. I just got married, so sometimes I go by Mcpherson, sometimes it's Aguilar. It just kind of depends. I am a fifth grade teacher. I'm self-contained, so I teach all subjects. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. So this is my Google Classroom all set up, and I'm in several Google Classrooms, but this is the one that I have for my homeroom. I really try to set up my Google Classroom to emulate how it would be in my class, especially because students are elementary. This is incredibly scary to them. This is very, very new to them to be doing everything on the computer. I will say for myself that I have already been using Google Classroom, but it has been taken to the extreme that everything is on Google Classroom. So I have it set up that I have co-teachers with me. These are several co-teachers. So math specialist, RTI, gifted, talented, they are all been added to my Google Classroom so that they can post work. So everything is differentiated depending on what that student needs, because Some students are going to need more support. Some students are going to need more complex things to work on. So in here, when we start our day, we start with announcements. So I made sure to put that in there. And then I also have resources. If you were to walk into my classroom, there are anchor charts everywhere. And I'm sure some of you have the same thing in your classrooms, but because I teach all subjects, I like to make sure that those students still have access to those. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and pull up from last week. This is one of the anchor charts. This is found on Google, just Google Images. And then I've went ahead and downloaded a copy and then attached it into my Google Classroom. So it's got very specific instructions. It's all very color coded because that's really what my students need. This is how I know that they use their anchor charts best, is when everything is very organized. That's how I kind of run my classroom, and that seems to work best. They respond really well to those kinds of things. I also have it labeled for each week and each subject, so I don't get confused as to what is what, because when you teach multiple subjects, it can get a little confusing. And then I also have things set up ready to go for next week. These are in gray right now because the only person that can see them are the teachers. These are not visible to the students yet. I have also added in my resources some games. These are games that we have already played in my class, and they can range on a level of difficulty depending on what the kids need. And it's all you use is a deck of cards. Most of my students have those deck of cards already because we've been using it since day one. We were told by my district for Judson ISD that as an elementary school teacher, we can't teach anything new. Everything has to be stuff that we have already taught. And so since these card games are things that they've already done, they're familiar with them. So I know they'll do them over and over again, and they will adapt and change how they see fit. Here I have all of my reading assignments, and you can see they make all sorts of cute comments. I also have administration on here, so they can make comments on subjects that students need help. Special education's on here. Intervention specialists are in here as well. So if you go into my math, you'll notice that I have homework from last week. This is this week's right here. So the first one is going to be a video that it comes straight from the resource that we use in class every single day. They've seen this video before. And then the second one will actually be the work that they do. And this is linked straight from the resource into Google Classroom. That's how our district has it set up. So it makes it very easy to simply upload. And it goes right along with science. Science is going to be all experiments, hands-on things that they can do and create and get messy. And then social studies as well. But at the bottom, I also have just for fun things. So this ranges from a level of difficulty from very easy, making a poster, to a little more complex. These are coding things depending on what my kids need. My kids have already been using Google Classroom. We've done it for reading. So how my reading assignments I have set up are exactly the same of what we've done in school. So there's not usually too many questions. The new one is going to be math. So math is a little more complex, trying to teach math to fifth graders or computers a little bit harder. So I've included extra videos in my resources for things that they may need. And then there's also an anchor chart, because when I teach it in class, it's video, anchor chart, practice. And that's kind of, I want my Google Classroom to be the same. So as much similarities between classroom and distance learning as I can keep. I think that eases a lot of my kids' stress. It eases some of the parents' stress, because they've known this is the way it's been all along. And then if they have questions, they can reach out to me on Google Classroom, email, Class Dojo is what I use, text messaging, whatever it takes. And I can show you what one of the I can show you what one of the videos looks like. So this one is from Number Rocks, and it's a cute little catchy song. It's pretty. It shows them the steps. So it's really kid friendly. It's very catchy. It's things that they can remember. You know, a lot of fifth graders, you know, they like music and those kinds of things. So if they're able to kind of, understand that and relate to it, they're going to remember that when they're doing their work. So I think that's super important. I like to do things like that for them. Anything fun, because if I just have them sit down and write out things, that's boring to them. So it's got to be something fun has to be included in there. So I like to do the fun videos. It's definitely a little bit less than what Susan does, just because my students are not quite as advanced in technology as her high schoolers. I'm sure some of them probably are, but I try to keep it simple in the elementary level.
So Heather, a quick question. Do you record any videos of yourself teaching any of the concepts for any subjects?
I have not recorded myself teaching anything subjects for students. I've done like some Google things for like my other fifth grade team. I have not attempted the videos. The videos I'm hoping to do really over summer, and then I'll have those uploaded. So heaven forbid anything like this ever happen again, we have them. But I think I'm going to do that next year, and now knowing that this could possibly happen, to have those videos ready to go for the kids. And
I wanted to ask, so Number Rock, I posted the link for the actual website, but you use them off of YouTube where they're already posted and they're free?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Wow. So Susan, anything you want to add before we talk about breakouts?
Yeah, like she was saying, like Heather was saying, that they were told no new material. We were told we continue. And I think that was something that I was really excited about. The way our superintendent says, look, there's no more state testing. This is the way you've always wanted to teach. So he made it seem like dream teaching, right? Teach the way you've always wanted to teach. And so for my pre-calculus kids, you know, we're still covering material. And they told me, like, look, they told all of us, you know what your student needs for the next class, you modify. So I did. I'm modifying, and I'm still moving forward. As for my AP kids, they have that AP test. And so, you know, my goal was just to get them ready. And because I told them the first day of school, I got you. And I had to reassure them, look, I got you through virtual. And so I'm doing my best, and we're getting through it. We're getting through it.
So what would you say, I mean, part of the plan today was to be able to ask you guys how, not even how different it is. We know it's different. We know that this is like unprecedented. We have never been through anything like this before. And I'm knocking on 50. So I know that, you know, the technology is different. The way we're delivering information is different. And even though, like with Heather, that you guys aren't doing new material, just keeping them on track and keeping them engaged so that they're not, I mean, 3 months of summer is already or summer brain, but to have a big gap like this, we want to make sure that they're keeping where they are. But what would you say from the student's perspective? And I'm going to let Heather go first, and I'm going to ask Susan the same question. What would you say are your students' biggest concerns?
My students' biggest concerns are submitting their work. They want to make sure that I'm getting it. And any questions that they have, a lot of times I will get messages either on text, Class Dojo, or emails about like certain skills, like especially for math, like, well, how do I start this problem? I know that the questions will increase along with the difficulty of lessons, because I have to make sure that the rigor is there for 6th grade, because they're not taking that STAR test this year. But I would say it's going to be, how do I start this problem? Because that's usually, as for my students this year, that's where they struggle, is they have a problem in front of them and they know how to do the operations. It's just, which one do I do? What step do I do first? So it's kind of just reinforcing that.
Okay. But do you think that there are any concerns that they have about the situation itself, going back to school, what the future holds for us?
Absolutely. I have already gotten questions of, are we going to be able to graduate and have our ceremony? Are we going to have to make these days up? And I'm very honest with them. I tell them, you know, hey guys, I'm not sure yet. We haven't gotten anything completely figured out or been told everything yet. Being honest with them is the best thing, because if I just kind of tell them anything and then it changes and they get a message from the district, that's gonna, you know, the trust won't be there. And they do trust me because I've been honest from the beginning. So yeah, they're definitely worried about graduation and those kinds of things, and we're working through it.
I think that's I mean, one of the greatest pieces of advice you could give. I know that Judson was prepared, or at least Woodlake was prepared even before spring break, thinking about the week afterwards, how it might be changing. So that's a good thing. And I have a follow-up question, but I want Susan to address that question first. Of what are your kids' any academic concerns, and then have they expressed anything else that is just like really weighing on them right now? But I mean, I know the situation we're in, but what are your kids saying?
One thing about high school kids is they tell you. They're very upfront. They're very honest. Some of them I did a survey just to see how, and they're like, some hate it. They hate it because they want to be back in the classroom. And one of the questions I posed to them, I said, look, now that we're doing this, this online and learning, would you consider taking an online course in college? And most of them said no, that now they know what kind of learner they are. A lot of them said, I need the human interaction. I need the teacher interaction. Even though you're doing the videos and it's exactly the same thing, I need to see you. But on the other hand, I've had students who are like, oh my God, this is easy because I'm knocked out my school day from 6 hours to 2 hours and I'm done. But I think what it is it's just the routine. When I first started with the first Zoom session with my calculus kids, I said, okay, how often do you want to do this? They're like, every day. And I was like, every day? They're like, every day at 3. And I was like, okay. So we did that. And then I got the notification from the district and I said, okay, guys, we were meeting every day. They're like, well, we don't need to see every day, miss, because, let's do Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that's our schedule, Tuesdays and Thursdays. So it could put some kind of normalcy. I think my calculus kids, they want to go back to school, maybe just for their closure because they're seniors. My other students, my juniors, it's like they said the hardest thing was the motivation, because I'm not there to be like, hey, get to work. Hey, get to work. And they were like, that's the hardest thing. I'm not motivated. I see the work in Google Classroom. I see the videos and they're like, so, and we were told not to put a deadline, I gave them work. I can't put a deadline on it. I got to be lenient, because some of them have Wi-Fi problems. I'm running into some of my students that luckily we figured it out yesterday. For the AP Classroom, if you use AP Classroom, they have a lockdown browser. Well, we found out you can install it on personal Chromebooks. And most of my kids' personal Chromebooks are more affordable than laptops. And so I'm glad I gave that assignment on AP Classroom, because when they take their AP test, they're going to have to install the lockdown browser. So it's frustrating. Wow. It's frustrating, but I can't panic. I have to stay calm for their sake. And so I try to issue out like, okay, hatch out. Let's get this issue taken care of, so they can be like, okay, I'm gonna get through this.
Thank you, Susan. I'm wow. Yeah, we talk a lot about with Michelle being our chief technology strategist. We talk a lot about what school district firewalls will allow and won't allow when we're trying to give particular online resources, and the links, they'll get blocked. But you touched on something that was my next question. How are you dealing with providing support for students who are not able to get online, or have there been any students that you haven't been able to get in touch with?
There has been students that I have not reached out to. The ones that have, I kind of say, hey, have you talked to so-and-so? Where I teach John Jay is Title I, and most of my kids work.
Yeah.
Most of my kids work, and right now, some of them are the main income. So they are working at H-E-B, at Walmart. They're telling me, Miss, I'm working 40 hours because mom and dad lost their job. We're asked to be lenient. I'm luckily because I plan ahead and I always carry over grades. Before we went on spring break, I had grades for the new grading period. So all my kids have a grade right now. So I've talked to myself because there's no one else to talk to. But if it comes down to when grades are due, and and the student hasn't logged in because they don't have the technology, I mean, I can't penalize them. I can't. It's not their fault. And so their grade is going to be a reflection of up to a certain date that I have.
Okay, because as an organization, we have been trying to provide recommendations. We have a policy team, and we have our ed practice, and then we have research, and we're trying to put all those three departments together to think about situations like that. So one is where we've been talking about the digital divide, where students may not have access, but the second is simply, given the circumstances, what other stresses they have going on in their day-to-day, either having lost a job or being the supporter for a family, and then as well, how much they can handle, how much work they can actually generate, worrying about, the A through F grades, where I know some school districts are going to pass-fail as either complete or incomplete or complete. And so, Heather, earlier we had talked about there's one student that you weren't able to reach yet, but as a campus, how is that looking for Woodlake?
So for my campus, we had came up with the Google Forms, and we put in there any students that we have not been able to get a hold of, parents we haven't been able to get a hold of through phone calls, emails, Class Dojo, those things. And our district has, or our school went ahead to the district main office, and a social worker from the main office will be doing home visits based on whatever the addresses that we have, and going to check up on those families to see how they're doing. Are there things that they need taken care of, whether that's getting their electricity turned on, do they need food resources, electronic resources. And then the district has also kind of set up a program because we're also a Title I district, for students who have no technology. We did a whole survey on that as well. The teachers and parents went ahead and submitted information of how many kids are in the household, how many technology, how many have access to technology, and then how many computers, laptops, cell phones they actually have. Because they may have a computer, but if you have 5 kids in that home, they all can't use the computer at the same time. So Google Classroom is going to be a challenge. And so they are going to be setting up a way that parents can go pick up that technology, or that technology can be delivered to the homes if necessary. I do know that my principal and staff principal and assistant principal and social worker have went to students' homes and dropped off packets of work for those students who have not been able to get on Google Classroom or don't have that technology. They've hand delivered them. They've had parents come pick them up in the drive-through. We're doing as much as we can to try and reach all of those students, especially the ones that need that extra support, whether it's technology or basic items such as food, clothing, electricity, because we do know a lot of our parents have lost their jobs right now or are not working because of this.
Wow. Yeah, we have a couple tools that we've been trying to help keep track of certain things like that, as far as where food can be picked up, and then again with the delivery of materials, trying to get an idea of who's doing what, right? I mean, so just in San Antonio, we have so many different school districts, which is unlike a lot of parts of most of the country, where you have maybe one big county district that's dealing with all of the students. But here we're trying to get information from all of the individual school districts. And so we know that there's a lot of work going on. And again, I thank you both personally for our, being a former John Jay teacher, and my son attends Woodlake. In fact, Mrs. Aguilar is my son's teacher. And so I know the work that is going on behind all of this, and the amount of support that they are trying to provide for every child, literally every child in the district. One question that we do have in the chat room is, how are you handling the tension between content coverage and the volume of work given? Who wants to take that on first?
Well, like I had answered that we're limited. Which I'm still fighting. Matter of fact, I was texting my academic dean right now. I was like, come on. We were told 100 minutes per week per content. And so they kind of designated like a schedule. Like for me, math is Tuesdays and Fridays. But since I had the calculus 2 and Thursday, the kids were okay with it. But it's Tuesday and Fridays, and they said that includes the time of viewing the videos and making sure they have time to finish the assignment. So my assignments have been short. I mean, math, you either get it or you don't get it. I don't believe in drill and kill, like 20 problems. I can give you 5, and if you can't do 5, then you don't know what you're doing. So that's the thing, was 100 minutes per content per week. I can tell you the kids want more. The kids want more. And so, but it's right now it's 100 minutes per week.
So, I mean, because you talked about that a little earlier, but I didn't get that number, 100 minutes.
Mm-hmm. So you think about it. So if you look at it, my video, say for example, is like 20, right? If I do 2 videos, maybe like 25, 20, that's already 50 minutes. I got to leave 50 minutes for them to do their work and to Zoom with them.
Wow.
Now I can tell you right now, I'm breaking the rules, but
we'll clip that part out of the recording.
but the thing is, my kids are asking for it.
Right.
And as a teacher, you know me better than anything, Paula, I'm gonna do it. You know, if they're asking me and if they're there and they want to be in the Zoom longer, I'm gonna be there for them.
Right.
You know?
Right. And so, Mrs. Aguilar, how does that, I mean, for you, can you give them a rundown, give our audience a rundown of what you're actually, well, you already gave the Google Classroom, but what are your priorities? And then how much time do they have before they submit?
So there is no deadline. As long as the assignments have been submitted by the end of the 9 weeks, I have to get full credit, which is my classroom policy anyways. I'm not going to penalize you for turning in an article from 4 weeks ago. As long as it's the same grading period, you'll still get the same grade. Projects are a little bit different, but we're not going to do projects with distance learning. Right. There's no set time value for like each subject, but reading and math are always going to be the priority, just because if you can't read, you can't do math either. You know, you're going to struggle with that because math is reading, science is reading. So reading for me is number one, math is a very close second. Science is always that hands-on so they can move around, because, you know, I'm hoping that they're not sitting there all day. The idea is I'm hoping like kids are doing maybe 20 to 30 minutes a day on work. That's kind of, and I give them extra stuff because I do have parents messaging me, hey, they're done with these things, they're very bored, can you give that other stuff? So then I included all of those just for fun activities, which is more challenging, some of it is, in those games and things like that, so that they can practice those skills.
Okay, thank you. And I think that it's just, in either situation, I think it's just very difficult for you to gauge how much time a student needs for anything. I mean, in Susan, in your classes in advanced mathematics, you know, you could sit for a couple hours just kind of stewing over a handful of questions because you really get into it. And it makes you look at other things. And I mean, so, and then kids move at different paces, right? If there's a kid who's really whipping through some questions, which is probably not the case because I know you give challenging questions, but you know, that's what you want. And so, you know, I guess I'm pretty sure the kids are not writing down the time limit either. They're totally throwing it out the window. And then for our younger students, our elementary, and again, Heather has 5th graders, preparing them for moving on to the middle schools next year. So I can only imagine what early childhood and like 2, 3, 4, grades 2, 3, and 4 are trying to handle with all of this, with the students themselves. So I do believe in chunking. We you know, I know that trying to keep them on some kind of schedule is good. I want to do a breakout, and then I want to come back and we'll answer a few more questions if we have some. But one thing that we discovered last week, and my eyebrows just shot up because I was super excited about this. I was on a call last week. Zoom has become life, right? Like, I've already set it now to just open up when the computer turns on because I know I'm going to have a Zoom meeting during a day. But one thing that I did not know prior to last week was that you could do breakout rooms. And so we are going to do a breakout session. So a couple things about this before we go in is, one, any Zoom account has this ability, but you have to go into the settings to make sure that you have enabled breakout rooms. Second thing is you can either assign people into breakout rooms, or you can do it automatically and let it just filter in randomly. So like we're talking about doing some teacher training, we want to be able to do that small group collaboration. We will probably assign rooms, but if you're with your students and you just want to throw them in a room, you can do that. And so we're going to do this. Let me get on the right screen. I'm sorry. So Michelle is hosting. So the host is the person who can do the breakout rooms. No student will be able to just throw kids into a different room. I should stop using the word throw, but you know what I mean. So Michelle is going to put us in chat rooms. The question that I'm going to pose in advance of us going in there is, what is one thing that you would want your students to do, or your children or your coworkers, whoever's on the call? What's one thing that you would want your students to do on a daily basis during this time? Like, whatever that is, what's one thing you want them to do? We're going to go to the breakouts and we're going to come back.
Great question, Paula. I think that's going to be a very interesting topic for discussion. Before we actually break out into the rooms, though, I would like to show some settings and how breakout rooms work, so that when you're rewatching this video, you'll remember, so that you can do it on your own.
When you look at your host menu at the bottom of the Zoom window, you'll see a button that says Breakout Rooms.
If you decide to create a breakout room while you're sharing your screen, you simply click the More menu and then choose Breakout Rooms. Zoom will take the number of participants and try to create as many rooms to have even number of participants in each room. You can also use the automatic function, or you can manually assign participants to the rooms. Once you're ready, you click Create Breakout Rooms. Here you'll see the rooms that have been created, and then you'll also have options to edit the room name or delete the room name. If you click Assign, you'll see the list of all your participants, and you can create checkboxes next to each of the names you want in that group, and then click Assign again. If you need to move a participant out of one room into another, simply highlight their name, and then you can move them into the other room if you'd like. And you can exchange them with someone else. When you're ready, select Open All Rooms. Your participants will see a message, and then as soon as they click Join, they will be put into each of the rooms. If a participant has not joined, it'll show, and then once they've joined, the gray dot will turn green. From the attendee perspective, they will get a note that says the host has invited you to join a breakout room. They simply select Join Breakout Room, and then they'll be placed into the room with the other participants. From the host perspective, you can reopen the breakout rooms, and then you can decide to join whichever room you would like. You can also broadcast a message to everyone in the different breakout rooms. If you need to move somebody, you can move them as well. When you're ready, select Close All Rooms, and then it'll give participants 60 seconds to wrap up their final thoughts, and then it'll bring them back to the main room. If the meeting is being recorded in the cloud, it'll only record the main room. If you want each of the individual breakout sessions to be recorded, you'll have to assign a breakout room leader. That breakout room leader will then select the record button while in the breakout room, and then the host will grant recording privileges. When all the breakouts are done and the meeting has ended, the breakout room leader can send the recorded video to the course instructor.
With that being said, the breakout rooms for this meeting are not being recorded. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just put out some of these breakout room ideas that you can think about until the main meeting resumes and everyone's back in the main room.
Sure. I love that feature.
It was pretty cool.
I absolutely. Oh, that's right. That's the first time. I love that feature. So I didn't give you enough preface on that question, I realized, but I just wanted people to share with each other kind of what you're doing to break up your day. I mean, if you're indoors all day long, just what are you doing? And we heard a lot about movement, and Stephanie checks in with her CSO students just to talk, like not about, oh, what's your action plan? What's your next step in your action plan? What mentor have you called this week? Because we work with youth, but just what are you really doing for yourself during this time to break up the day and not, I mean, it'd be so easy to fall into what I call sloth mode, but you know, I cannot do that because I am gonna, we work. I mean, I'm trying not to sit at my desk for 8 hours a day doing the work of the organization, but for personal self with 2 preteens in the house, I'm learning that I have to break up that day. Yes, a 5th grader and a 7th grader, pray for me. They've been home for a month, and but they're doing well. And I mean, but again, I'm a math teacher. I set up a schedule and all those things, but I really wanted to, we've been wanting to make sure that we're sharing with parents ways that they can help their students. But then again, with teachers, we're trying to help teachers, but we wanted to hear from the teachers. And so my question is, if I'm trying to open my chat box back up, what do you think about the ability to break out do breakouts in your Zoom session? And anyone can do it. If you're hosting the session, anyone can do breakouts. And so what did you think? I mean, and you can set the time. You can set it to longer times. I love it. Super easy to use, Michelle says. And she was basically forced into doing that today for the first time because I mentioned it in a meeting yesterday, or was that just yesterday? Yeah. So, I mean, we learned it overnight, literally.
It takes seconds to learn. I think the challenge will be when you start to try to actually assign people to rooms. I think that might be a little, there might be a little learning curve to that. But to allow Zoom to break out the rooms randomly and just kind of add people to it, that was super easy. And then just like Susan mentioned, if you're the host, then what you see is you see 3 columns or whatever amount of columns of groups that you have. So if you have 3 groups, you see 3 columns. If you have 4 groups, you see 4. But there's, for the host, you see a little join on top of each one of those columns. So you can bounce in and out of each of the breakout rooms as often or as little as you want. So I thought that was pretty neat. So I could have bounced into any of them. I chose the one with Clarabelle and Jocelyn because I was like, oh, let's do this during our next meeting. Yeah, super simple. I mean, there was really no learning curve for the random rooms.
Yeah, Stephanie says it gives the students or whomever the ability to talk to one another when necessary. And prior to that, if you're not in the chat box, she was saying that when students are going through Direct Teach on Zoom, they're sitting on mute for so long. And that this way you get them back connected. Something, I mean, just an immediate application for us, even though we're all adults and, in different places, when we have our staff meeting and our strategic planning meeting, we end up, like yesterday was kind of crazy because we do cross training or cross pollination, we call it. So there are several teams, there's 4 teams. And so we meet all together, and then we have 2 groups meet, and then we cross those over. So we were going in and out of different Zoom meetings. And then not everyone had the link, and then we weren't sure about the time. And so in this case, it would have been really cool to just drop us into the places where we were supposed to be. And of course, we'd have to have kind of a matrix set up, like tournament, fights or something. But it'd be a lot easier to do it this way than to when you try to leave a meeting and then come back to the first meeting. Well, are you in the right one? We had 3 or 4 different Zoom calls going within an hour and a half time frame. It was crazy yesterday. But that, again, that's just a really great tool to have at your disposal. And again, we're all about free, because the first question we had was, wait, do you have to have a pro account for that, or does anyone have access to that? And so it is true that everybody can use it. You just have to figure it out. And it's very easy on the webpage. I did want to leave the question open for just a second, as far as, are there any questions about Zoom, Whiteboard, things like that? I want to share my screen real fast because there were some ideas that we saw. Tell me if this is the right screen. And I'm going to go there. Okay. So I found this on activelanguage.net earlier this week or yesterday, I'm sorry, this week is yesterday, about breakout rooms. And so sometimes you may want to post a question or a few, and then have them go away to discuss them and then come back. Again, small group discussion, I think everyone uses. We do turn-in talks all the time. You can set the breakout room time frame for anywhere from a minute to longer, like they can go have a full session and come back. And again, as the host, as the teacher, you can go into the different rooms and check in on their work. Another one was to have them compare their thinking and I put an exercise or demonstration. So if you show a video and you want to get students to just kind of deliberate and talk amongst themselves about a particular topic or thought, then you can send them away and then have them come back and then share with the whole group. And then the last is always team competition. You could throw a Kahoot in there. You could do any kind of Google form to put in the chat box, but have them give their answers to you. And that way they're not, it doesn't ruin the moment for anyone else. Everyone can answer at their own time, within the time limit, of course, but no one is canceling out anyone else's ability to respond. And so those are just a few things that I wanted to share there. I'm going to stop sharing that. And I don't see any other questions right now. We did want to also remind our guests today, if you have been watching our webinars, you know that there's a series of webinars that we are keeping recorded versions of. And I'm going to send you back to, hold on, my screen share, if I can do it right again. Woohoo, feeling pretty good. So we wanted to make sure that we were not just putting up webinars and then leaving people to their own devices to get things done. So for IDRA assistance or follow-up or teacher support, here are some links. I would take a screenshot of the screen. These are, the first is a form that will link you to an online Google form for giving us information on the district of the school and the type of support that you might need, and then we'll follow up with you. Below that is a link to our YouTube videos, and then the last one is a link to our online COVID resource webpage. So we have information about policy changes, about teacher training. We do a lot of our resources in English and Spanish. We have parent information, teacher information, and then general information for different resources that you can be using online with students or to share with parents to help support their students at home. The pages look something like this. This is our news updates and policy, and you'll find a link to all of our past webinars, which are recorded and posted, and then registering for new titles as they come along. And you could take a screenshot of this one as well. And Michelle, do we post no, because you can go see it, but we don't post the actual slide deck, if I'm not mistaken. But if you
actually we do, and if you want to stop sharing, then what I can do is I can navigate to the site so I can show it to everybody.
Thank you, because I only ever see the other one.
Okay, so once the webinar is done, what we'll do is we'll post it on our website, and we'll post it with the all the links. So if you go to idra.org, which is really the only address you need to remember, and then you click on full menu, then what you'll see, and let me just navigate over, let's see here. My screen's too big. Okay, navigate over to where it says Learning Goes On, a COVID-19 resource for education. And then what you'll see are all the things that Paula was talking about. You have our e-news weekly updates, our resources and research, our policy updates, and then the webinar series. So last week we had done, Stephanie and I, a webinar on tools and tips to alleviate the homework gap. And so if you click on the link, it'll take you to the page that has the recorded webinar. Let's see. I don't know why.
I think you click on Webinar Hub. It was a small link. Yeah, right where you were.
Okay, so as Stephanie said, on the Webinar Hub, what you'll see is any of the resources that we've used during the session. You'll see the slide deck. You'll see any of the resources that we referenced. So the resources that Paula was sharing, like the YouTube Number Rocks video that Heather provided, and then Explain Everything that Susan provided. Those links will be here, as well as any help guides that we're creating, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to create step-by-step guides for people to follow. So we know that this is fast, we know that it's an hour and you've gotten a lot of information, and we want you to be able to have the resources that you need at your fingertips. And so they're going to be listed with where on the webinar page. So just like this one, this was the webinar that we had last week. And so now you see all of the resources, you see the share Google Drive that has lesson plans and things like that. And then you also can just click play and rewatch the webinar. And you, of course, because it's in YouTube, just like what Susan and Heather was mentioning, is you can jump to whatever section that you want to rewatch. You don't have to rewatch the whole thing. Fast forward and back up or pause or whatever you need to do. But everything's going to be listed here on the IDRA website. So again, you can go to the full menu and look at Learning Continues for the Resource Hub, or you can click under Events to actually see all of the events that we have. And these are all the webinars that we've had over the past 3 weeks. And click on any of them and get to, again, the recorded video and the resources. Okay, that's all I have. Oh, you know what? I changed my mind. That's not all I have. Okay, one more thing. I posted a link in the chat box that if anybody's looking for any kind of training, or you would like for your principal to reach out to IDRA to do team training with your teachers, please fill out that form. And then our Director of Operations, Hector Bajorquez, will reach out to whoever fills out that form and discuss options that we have available. We are going to be doing one-on-one training, team training, and things like that for all of the resources that were shared today and was shared on the previous webinars as well. So fill out that form, and then we can discuss what would be best for your campus. Okay, Paula, take it away. You're muted. Paula,
that's the link that I discussed earlier. But know that everything that is posted, again, this is for your use, for your sharing. Do not be stingy with it. Give it to everybody that you know that might need it. We understand, like we truly understand. IDRA just celebrated last week our 47th anniversary, and as a nonprofit, that means we are ancient and still going strong. I've been there for almost 10 years, and I love my job. And this is one of the reasons, is because we understand that there are issues of equity, especially in a time like this. It makes me extremely humble to know that my job is secure, my children are fed. I didn't accept the resources from the district for the technology because we have Chromebooks for our children. My son has one because he's part of the STEM Academy, so he has a school laptop as well, but we didn't want to take something that someone else could use, because one of our first questions was, how is this going to work for kids who do not have internet, do not have a computer, do not have parents at home that have the know-how to even know who to ask for what? You know, there are parents who are just home like, okay, it's summertime. Like, nope, not summertime. That is the biggest thing. Nope, get up, take a shower, get dressed. We have to stick to some kind of, for myself too, some kind of routine, but also making sure that they're at least engaging, even if it's review, even if it's, you know, imagination, play, and art, and just movement, all those things that we want them to do during the day at school. I'm not trying to replicate school in any way, shape, or form, because there's no way I could do what Mrs. Aguilar is doing every day over at Woodlake. But I want parents to understand that they have support, and that teachers have support, school districts have support, and we really understand the trying times of right now. But again, our biggest focus is the issue of equity for our students, teachers, parents, even teachers. Not all teachers have the same resources right now. So one of our first questions was, you know, and the second question was, even if we can provide all this technology, if you have the funding for it, are the teachers prepared to use it? And can the manufacturers support that? If we had to make a big purchase of 10,000 units of, 10,000 laptops, who's going to supply that need? Who's going to provide the infrastructure? I know that some school districts are providing hotspots for certain families, or they're being very innovative at this time. But again, we're just trying to do all that we can to support the educators and families across not just our region, but our city and our country right now with the information that as it comes to us. So we are pushing things out. As Michelle showed you, the webpage, I mean, that's at least one webinar every week since this started, that we are pulling together all of our resources and the people that we know to speak about the different aspects of the current circumstances. So again, I just really, really thank Susan and Heather. Thank you so much for joining me at a very late notice, like less than a week, yeah, and joining us today. And again, as always, my super troopers, Michelle and Stephanie, thank you for all of your support. And there's some other IDRA people in the group today that I want to thank you for coming on. And Lydia, thank you all the way from Florida jumping on the webinar today. For those of you who, well, you may not know Lydia South well, but I know her as she's a director for the Department of Education of Florida. And so I'm very thankful that she was able to join us today as well. I'm not as familiar with Stephanie or Leah.
Those are my staff persons.
Oh, those are yours. So you made them get on this call. Oh, I do know Leah. Okay. So she said, "Oh, we're getting on this call." So Lydia, you know, as a friend of IDRA, you know that we're here for you for whatever you need. And
yes,
I just thank you all again for joining us today. Ladies, keep up the great work. We are very appreciative. I speak as a parent and as an educator. We definitely appreciate all that you're doing. And if there are no other questions, Michelle, we can just wrap this baby up.
All right. Bye, everybody. Again, thank you for...
Have a great Tuesday.
And we'll
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.